Hello children, again I welcome you to this session of English literature where we are going to continue with the story quality and we'll try to finish it off in this part of the video itself. So let us quickly start the story from where we had left in the last video. Page number 2626. I remember well my shy remark one day while stretching out to him my youthful foot. Isn't it awfully hard to do, Mr. Jessler? Now the narrator, the person who is narrating, he is saying that I can remember the remark that I passed to the shoemaker one day, that is it awfully hard to do, Mr. Jessler? Is it quite difficult to prepare the shoe, Mr. Jessler? And his answer, given with a sudden smile from out to the sardonic redness of his heart. It is hard. It is hard means it is hard. Now, when he asked whether it is hard to prepare the shoes in Mr. Jessler, now the name of the shoemaker is revealed over here. That is Mr. Jessler, and he says that it is hard. That is, it is actually hard. The art of preparing shoe is actually hard. Himself, he was a little as if made from leather, with his yellow crinky face and crinky reddish hair and beard, and neat folds slanting down his cheeks to the corner of his mouth. Now all this description is given about the physical appearance of Mr. Jessler. You can mark and learn this, and you can quote when you are describing about Mr. Jessler in some answer, you can quote this. And his guttural and one-tone voice. Guttural means the voice which comes from the throat. For leather is a sardonic substance, and stiff and slow of purpose, and that was the character of his face, save that his eyes, which were grey-blue, had in them a simple gravity of one secretly possessed by the idol. His elder brother was so very like him, though watery pallor in every way, with a great industry, that sometimes in early days I was not quite sure of him until the interview was over. Then I knew that it was he, if the words I will ask my brother had not been spoken, and that if they had, it was his elder brother. Now it is revealed over here that there were two brothers who were working, and physical appearance of both their brothers is given, and they were working together as a shoemaker, and they had a shop. Though they were from outside, it gave the impression that it is two shop, but as the customers went inside, they found that it was a single shop and it was run by two brothers. When one grew old and wild and ran up hills, one somehow never ran them up with Jessler brothers. It would not have seemed becoming to go in there and stretch out one's foot to that blue iron spectacle glass, owing him for more than say two pairs, just the comfortable reassurance that one was still his client. Whenever the narrator visited this place where Mr. Jessler Mr. Jessler owned their shop, Mr. Jessler's owned their shop, it was very difficult for this man not to order a pair of shoe or two pair of shoe maybe, because whenever he went to that place where Mr. Jessler owned his shop, when he had to order something in order to, so that his order gave the assurance to Mr. Jessler that he was still Mr. Jessler's client, he was still Mr. Jessler's customer. For it was not possible to go to him very often. His boots lasted terribly, because he had to order whenever he visited, because he could not visit that place frequently, and the quality with which the Jessler brothers they produced shoe, they were of very high quality, and they lasted for a very long period of time. They were very durable. having something beyond the temporary, some as it were a sense of good stitched into them. One went in, not into the more shops in the mood of please serve me and let me go, but restfully as one enters a church and sitting on a single wooden chair waited there was never anybody there. Soon over the top edge of that sort of well, rather dark and smelling soothing of leather, which formed the shop, there would be seen his face or that of the elder brother peering down. Now, as the customer entered Mr. Jessler's shop, it gave the impression as if somebody had entered church because it was a very silent and quiet place. But after some time, when upon inquiry of the customer asking if there is anyone in the shop, one of those two brothers, they peeped from the hole downwards, and then people came to know that there were two brothers, or younger one or elder one, any one of them was present there. A guttural sound and the tip-tap of the vast slippers beating the narrow wooden stairs, and he would stand before one without coat, a little bent in leather apron, with sleeves turned black, blinking as if awakened from some dream of boots, or like an owl surprised in daylight and annoyed at this interruption. Now, narrator is saying that when the narrator he is describing how they greeted their customer whenever the customer went inside their shop, it gave the feeling as if they were not very happy with the arrival of the customer, because it gave the impression that that customer had interrupted them in their work, and when they came down they were not very fancily dressed. You can say they were dressed in a leather apron, and yeah, they came without the coat. They just had an apron, and their sleeves had turned black, and they blinked their eyes. They blinked their eyes, giving the impression as if they had got up from some dream of boots, where they were dreaming, where they even dreamt of boots. And I would say, how do you do, Mr. Jessler? Could you make me a pair of Russian leather boots? And then the narrator said that whenever I visited the shop, whenever the Jessler brother came and stood in front of me, then only I inquired from him, can you make me how do you do, Mr. Jessler? Could you make me a pair of Russian leather boots? Without a word, he would leave me retiring whence he came, or into the other portion of the shop, and I would continue to rest in the wooden chair, inhaling the license of his trade, inhaling the incense of his trade. Now, the narrator is saying that without a word he would leave me. He would go away from where the client was sitting, where the author was sitting, who is actually Mr. Jessler's client, and then he tried to get a boot to show him of what sort of boot he wanted to be prepared, and then the narrator would relax and sit comfortably, and then itself he could sense the perfection in the trade of Mr. Jessler. Soon he would come back holding in his thin veiled hand a piece of gold brown leather. With eyes fixed on it, he would mark, what a beautiful piece. Now the pronunciation is different of Mr. Jessler, that's why he would say, then when he came back with the shoe and he showed the shoe or the boot to the author, he would remark then, what a beautiful piece have I brought, what a beautiful piece have I brought. When I too had admired it, he would speak again, when do you want them? When after seeing the art or the work of Mr. Jessler, when the author also admired and praised Mr. Jessler's work, then Mr. Jessler inquired that when was the requirement of boots to the narrator. And I would answer, "Oh, as soon as you conveniently can." The narrator was never in a hurry, and then he replied to Mr. Jessler that you can give me the boots as soon as possible, as soon as it is convenient to you. And he would say tomorrow fortnight, or if he were his elder brother, I will ask my brother. If the elder brother took the order from the narrator, then he used to tell the narrator that I have to ask my brother, I have to ask my younger brother when will I give the shoes. Maybe fortnight, or whenever the elder brother took the other order, he said, whenever I will have to ask my brother. Then I would murmur, "Thank you, good morning, Mr. Jessler. Good morning." Whenever he wished good morning to Mr. Jessler, he wished good morning. He would reply, still looking at the leather and in his hand as I moved to the door. I would hear the tip tap of his. He would reply, still looking at the leather in his hand as I moved to the door, I would hear the tip tap of his bast slippers restoring him up the stairs to his dream of boots. But if it were some new kind of footgear that he had not yet made me, then indeed he would observe ceremony, divesting me of my boot and holding it long in his hand, looking at it with eyes at once critical and loving, as if recalling the glow with which he had created it, and rebuking the way in which one had disorganized his mantelpiece. Then, placing my foot on a piece of paper, he would 2 or 3 times tickle the outer edges with a pencil and pass his nervous fingers over my toes, feeling himself into the heart of my requirements. Now, this is how Mr. Jessler used to take the size. He used to draw it on the paper, and he used to take the size 2-3 times, and it gave the feeling to the narrator that as if he had taken the size in his heart. I cannot forget that day on which I had occasion to say to him, "Mr. Jessler, that last pair of town walking boots creaked, you know." Now, the author is saying that he did not get even a single opportunity. The author is saying, "I cannot forget that day when I had occasion." When the author is saying that on one fine day he got the chance to tell Mr. Jessler that the last pair of town walking boots creaked. Creaked means had broken. He looked at me for a time without replying, as if expecting me to withdraw or qualify the statement. When he was told this by the narrator, he gazed at the narrator as if he was expecting the narrator to recorrect the statement. And then he said, "I shouldn't have grieved." I shouldn't have grieved means I shouldn't have prepared. It did, I am afraid. It did. It shouldn't have grieved. It did, I am afraid. Then the narrator replied that it had. You got them wet before they found themselves. You got them wet means you must have got them wet before they would have creaked. I don't think so, the narrator replied, and at that he lowered his eyes as if hunting for memory of those boots, and I felt sorry I had mentioned this grave thing. When the narrator insisted upon telling that the boots had creaked, and then there was a feeling of guilt in Mr. Jessler, and he could not look up towards the author, and then the author says that he felt very bad, that why did he relate that thing, why did he tell that thing to Mr. Jessler. "Send them back," he said, "I will look at them." Send them back means send them back, I will look at them. A feeling of compassion for my creaking boots surged up in me. So well could I imagine the sorrowful long curiosity of regard which he would bend on them. Now, Compassion means feeling of you can say feeling of sympathy towards the boot aroused in the narrator, and he is saying that he was ready to send them to Mr. Jessler to have a look at them. Zom boots, he said slowly. Zom boots are bad from bird if I can do nothing with them. I take them off your bill. Zom boots, he's saying those boots which I had made for you, I will see if I can repair them, and if I am not able to repair them, I will cancel the charges from your next bill whenever I generate a next bill for you. Once only, I went absent-mindedly into his shop in a pair of boots bought in an emergency at some large firm. He took my order without showing me any leather, and I could feel his eyes penetrating the inferior integument of my foot. At last he said, "Those are not my boots." Now, the narrator is saying that once he could recall the time when he had visited Mr. Jessler, Mr. Jessler at his shop, and at that time he was wearing boots. He was wearing boots which he had not got, which were not being prepared by Jessler Brothers, and he had to buy it from some big brand at some place because it was an emergency. And then he gazed at those shoes continuously till the time the author was there in the shop, and till the time he remarked that those shoes are not made by me. The tone was not of anger, nor of sorrow, not even of contempt. Now, the voice in which he had spoken those words, they were not of anger, neither they were of sorrow, but there was in something quiet that froze the blood. But there was something in the voice that actually gave a feeling of numbness to, that actually made the author feel cold, you can say feel bad about about the statement. He put his hand down and pressed a finger on the place where the left boot, endeavoring to be fashionable, was not quite comfortable. Then he could make out, he was such an expert in his trade, he was such an expert in his art, that by looking at the shoe itself, he could make out from where the shoe was uncomfortable, sorry. And at that place itself, he placed his finger and pointed out that the shoe were not comfortable from there. It hurts you there. It hurts you there. It hurts you there means it hurts you there. He said, "Those big firms have no self-respect, Drash. Those big firms have no self-respect," means they don't have any self-respect. And then, as if something had given way within him, he spoke long and bitterly. And after speaking with this, as if this sentence has aroused something inside him, and he started speaking long, and he spoke very bitter sentences, very harsh sentences. It was the only time I have heard him discuss the conditions and hardships of his trade, and it was the only time when the author is saying that he could recall that the Jessler brother discussed the hardship, the challenges that a shoemaker faces. Now children, we are going to end this video over here. Stay tuned and we will continue in the next video. Thank you.